All right, good afternoon, not good evening today. Everyone like to call to order the King George County School Board special meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, please be seated. All right, this time we'll open the floor for public and employee comment if we have any. Do not. Mr. Vance, do we have any online? All right, so we'll just move right along. So this afternoon we have as a discussion item our VSBA, the Virginia School Board Association Superintendent Search Process. So with that, Ms. Patterson and Mr. Brewster are here to walk us through getting started, I guess. Yes, whatever works for you is fine. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so it's good to be here with you all today. I'm sure you all wish you were doing other things, but as I told Carrie a few minutes ago, this is a process. I was just asking Cheryl, I was like, when was the last time we were here? And I think, what did you say, 10 years? 10 years ago? It's a long time. Long time in the state of Virginia right now for a superintendent. Just you probably had the longest serving superintendent in this region at this point. I know that doesn't help you right now, but we are here to help guide you through this process. So the first thing I want to say is that Tom has handed out to each one of you it's called our search manual. It's just to go over the process. It's a lot of information there. We're not spending the day going over every bit of information in this book, but true VSBA style, we want you to have more information than not enough. When you have questions, this book is there as a reference. And of course, we're going to be there as references with call, email, and as you know, you email me, I'm going to respond back to you pretty quickly.
Yeah,
so
certainly.
That we don't want you to worry about. We're going to be there when the process, from the beginning of the process till it's over, and then we're still your associations after it's over. So we have a vested interest in helping you get the right fit for your school division. And if we don't leave you all with one thing today, is to keep in mind it has to be the right fit for your school division, and what's a fit for your school division may not be for someone else. And that's why it's so important that your voice and your community's voice is involved in this process. So if you all want to stop us at any point with questions, we're happy to answer those. We're just going to dig right in and go over a few things in the book. We do want to point out a couple of things in the book that'll help with this process, and then work with you all on establishing a timeline and in what way you want to involve the community with this process. And from my understanding, your superintendent will leave as of August
31st.
August 31st.
Yes,
okay, so they have a little bit of time there. All right, now did you share with them the sample timeline as well? You should have given them all of that also. All right, while he's handing that out, I'm going to start by going over the book. Again, these are your books while the search process is going on. I would suggest if you have any notes, we put them in the book, and I'm going to tell you why, because there's that little thing called Freedom of Information Act and FOIA. While the search process is going on, you are protected from FOIA while the process is going on. As soon as this process is over, your FOIA law goes right back into place. So we suggest you put all notes in the manual, all that you can, and we will collect these once the process is over, and that should take care of that. A lot of this will be automated. I don't think any of you were around during the last search. I'm looking around. Okay, so you know a little bit about the process then. Right. Okay. So there are going to be a lot of emails. Do all of you have King George County email addresses? Attorney will only let us work through your school email addresses. So we can't send anything to individual emails, only to your school board email. So we'll be working through that. And as soon as this is over and we get back to the office today, Tom will send out an email to you all with some instructions, and that'll walk you through through the automated part of this process. So again, any notes have put in there. You see on the front cover, 1-800 number. You all call us at any time. You all have our emails. You can email us at any time with any questions, and I'm sure you will all have questions at some point with this process. Let's turn to page 6 in the book. Page 6, 7, and 8 basically just tell you a little bit about the VSBA and the process, the superintendent search process. I've been doing searches for over 25 years for the state of Virginia, so long time. Tom has been a previous superintendent, so we are here to provide any services you need as far as that goes. To be a superintendent in the state of Virginia, you have to fall under what they call options. And there are 4 options from the state of Virginia that you have to follow under. And if you turn to page 10, from page 10, 11, 12, 13, it tells you those 4 options. One of those options you all may not be aware of is that 4th option that says that if there is a candidate that you want that could be like from a have a background in the military, could have been a CEO of a major corporation, that the board can make a plea to the state board and ask for that 4th option, because it wouldn't fall under the licensure requirement, but it would fall under that 4th option. To date, I don't think in Virginia we have anyone that falls under that 4th option, and that's been in place since about 2005, I think. But this is just something to keep in mind. It's option number 4 on page 13. Page 14 quickly just talks about the major responsibilities of the superintendent as adopted directly from the State Board of Ed. You all will also have a job description for the superintendent, and that's what we're going to help you come up with through a survey and the will of the board, but we'll do that later. But these are just the major responsibilities as adopted by the State Board of Ed. Page 15, you will want to pay attention a little bit to this page. It basically tells you that all initial contracts must be a minimum of 2 years, a max of 4. That's for that first contract, and we will walk you through that process. But since you're candidate, we don't know when the start date for your new superintendent would be. I guess best case scenario would probably be January 1. So that means you would have to give that person a minimum 2-year, 6-month contract, or a maximum 3-year, 6 contract. Because that's why so many contracts usually start on July 1. It's just clean. You can say a 2, a 3, or a 4-year contract, but it doesn't matter. The bottom line is it just has to end on June 30th. Your superintendent is leaving at the end of August. By law, you have 180 days to appoint, calendar days to appoint your next superintendent after that vacancy. So starting September 1, you would have 180 days to appoint your next superintendent.
So we've appointed an interim.
Acting.
Interim acting. So does that play into the timeline at all, or it's really only from the official retirement date? So August 31st is the beginning of our 180-day requirement.
Yes, when your current superintendent,
Okay.
his last day, that first day
Got
starts
it.
your 180 days.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, but you're well ahead of that. And if there is this chance, we hope there isn't, that you'd have to extend that, all we do would go to the state board and ask for an extension on that. And that has happened before, but you are well ahead of that. So just a couple of things to keep in mind. Page 16 again just talks about some things that we want to make sure we cover today here with the board as far as the process goes. And just making sure we keep you legal is the most important thing. Page 17 and 18 talks about the certificate of appointment and the oath of office that the superintendent must take. Just information, just like you all take an oath of office, the superintendent must as well. We will remind you after you have finished the process about that, so that you don't worry about either. Page 20, recommended procedures. This is just some things to keep in mind as we start to put together your vacancy announcement. There are things at this point we can put on your vacancy announcement, like your demographic information, but then there are things we're going to have to wait from you, the board, to add, and these are just some things to keep in mind. Page 21, page 22 just talks about that process. And I think that one of the most important things you have to realize from VSBA is that we're going to screen every applicant that applies for the position. There are going to be some that meet your minimum requirements. There are going to be some that won't. But at the end of the day, we will have done reference checks on everyone that has applied. And then when we come back to meet with the board for that second interview, and that would be a closed meeting, that's when we would go over that information. Page 23.
Can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
On the recommended search procedures on page 20? So one of the recommendations is that the board should meet the spouses of the finalists.
Yes,
I'm
when you
just-
get down to like the second or third interview, yes.
Okay, I'm just wondering that just to understand the whole like
dynamic,
picture
yeah.
of the
Well,
stat superintendent.
because it's an investment. If they're coming here, let's say they're coming here from out of state, and you know, it's not just a job, they're investing in the community. You want them to be a part of the community. You want to make sure everyone wants to be here and be a part of that community. And it's just a way to get a feel of that relationship. You want to see this, whoever that candidate is, outside of an environment, just not just at work, but outside of that environment. And that's usually when you're getting ready to make the finalists, you would give them that option. It's not a requirement, it's a suggestion.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Page 23, this is a sample timeline. Tom handed to each of you a timeline as well. This is a sample timeline, and this is one of the most important things we need to do today is let's walk through this timeline and see what we need to adjust at this point, because this is what you want to get out to your public, get out to your staff and your community, where you, the board, are with this process and what your anticipated start date is for your next superintendent. So first meeting would be right now. Your meeting with the VSBA, that would be right now, although the timing is not correct on that.
Could I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
Is that all right? I'm just curious, you know, a lot of this is legal and some is recommendation and some is optional. Am I saying those three terms properly? In other words, an example, I'm just trying to clarify everything in here. I know some things are legal. We have to do these things, okay? But to give you an example, like when I looked at the fourth option of they have to have a master's degree, I'm thinking of a general in the military or something. Hell's experience, it would be fantastic, but he only has a bachelor's degree. I mean, are there exceptions to some of these legalities? Do they have to go? How does that work? I'm just curious.
It depends. It's going to depend. It's going to depend on. So if you had someone with those qualifications and then they would go to the state board for approval, we don't approve them. They approve them. They say yay or nay to that.
Okay.
Again, to this date, there has been no one that's been hired under that.
Yeah, that was just one example. I'm just,
Right.
I guess.
But if it's legal, we're going to point it out that it's legal. And that's our job, to make sure that you stay legal during this entire process. If it's optional, it's pretty clear that it'll be optional, just like she said with introducing the spouse. But if it's legal, we're going to tell you it's legal.
All right, thank you.
Just like I said, I think the one page with all contracts having to end on June 30th, that's legal.
Right. That's the questions I was at. All right. Thank you.
So with this timeline, your first meeting would be today, which we're here right now. The next thing you all as a board are going to want to think about, and I'm sure you'll probably do this, you may do one, you may do two, but at least one, of holding a public hearing to hear from your community the qualities that they also would like to see in your next superintendent candidate. This day and age, I don't know too many boards that don't do that. At the end of the day, this is a buy-in for the whole community, not just for the board. The board selects, but you want the whole community involved in that process. And there are two ways you can do that. The public hearing is one, and a survey is another. And we're going to talk about the survey in a minute. But a public hearing is the best way to do that. We put a date there just as a whole date, so we would have something to share with you all. But it would be truly up to this board when you all would hold that public hearing. But you wouldn't be able to put the job announcement out until the public hearing is complete, because what you want is the information from that public hearing and that survey to help you all as you start to establish the qualifications to help drive that conversation. So if you want to hear from your community, you also want to use those results when you start to decide what those qualifications look like for the next superintendent. So the whole date we had was July 23rd. But you all will have to decide amongst yourself if that will be a date that would work or not. But I wouldn't want to go you wouldn't want to go too far past the end of July, because that could sway your whole timeline.
Okay.
And let's continue with the July 23rd date. If July 23rd would be the date for the public hearing, that would also be the date of the deadline to complete the survey. So there may be people that want to come and tell you what qualifications they'd like to see in the next superintendent. They may be others that only want to tell you via a survey. There may be some that want to tell you both ways. But the survey, we already have the survey ready to go. The survey will be tallied by our office, so you don't have to worry about an integrity thing. We put all of that together, and then everything that's received, we send back to you all, the board. It's disaggregated. We break it down by what the overall results are, what staff is saying versus what parents are saying, or community members, or whatever they check when they completed the survey, because there are several areas, and we'll show you that in a minute. It's in the book, when they completed the survey, and then we disaggregate that information and send it back to you all, so you have that information as you start to decide what those qualifications look like for the next superintendent. And then after the public hearing and the closed date for the surveys, the board would need to get together again. It's a lot of meeting, I know. This is also a public meeting, and the purpose of this meeting would be to decide what those baseline qualifications would be for the next superintendent. So let me give you an example. Let's say a qualification was that the next superintendent must have an earned doctorate. What that says is that someone that doesn't have a doctorate would not meet the minimal qualifications. Or if you say a doctorate was preferred and not required, then you could interview someone that didn't have a doctorate. So those things are very important. And those are the things you're going to want to get the pulse from your community on. It's maybe a big deal in some areas, not in others. I'll give you another one, residency required. 25 years ago, it was a big deal. 99% of the superintendents, it was listed on a position announcement that residency was a requirement, that they must live in the county wherever that they worked. Right now, not so much. Some will say within a 50-mile radius. Some won't put residency on there at all. But that's something you all are going to have to determine up front, because if you hire someone and then they say, well, okay, well, I want the job, but I don't want to live, I want to live in what's the next, Fredericksburg, I want to live in another school division, or I want to live in another area, you all should have already established those qualifications to begin with, so they know, okay, well, if I'm not willing to move, then this probably I probably shouldn't apply for this position. So you would meet to establish those qualifications. You would send those qualifications back to us, the VSBA. We would put together the final position announcement, and then we would start advertising and posting. It's a national search no matter what, because it hits 49 other state school boards associations. It hits national publications. And all that is done online. They apply online. Once folks start to apply for the position and they fill out their information, you all will know in real time. As we know, you all will know when they start to apply, and that's because of the program that we use. What is it called? The Frontline program. You've probably heard of that, AppleTrack. You will know as we know, because you will have the same access, and you will get an email saying that an applicant has applied for the position. And then we usually like to say that we keep applications out there for 30 days. It just gives folks enough time to get all their letters of recommendation and information together for the position. And then once that closes, our job gets heavy. We start to work on the actual references, get those ready, and then we would come back to you all, the board, in a second meeting. It would probably take a couple of hours. I would give us at least 2, maybe 2.5. And that's when you would start to go over the candidates that have applied, and the board would make the decision who they would like to do that first round of interviews with. And then with that, you would start interviewing. You'd probably do a first, second, possibly more than likely a third, and with the anticipated start date, hopefully, of a January 1, 2023 start date. But I want to go back to a couple of items first. With the with the position announcement, if you all would turn to page 30 in your books, turn to page 30. Actually, turn to page, yeah, they're all over here. Turn to page 31, and I'll give you an example here. We basically have, thanks to Cheryl, we have all your demographic information that we needed for your position announcement. What we don't have, and we will not have until you all decide what those qualifications are the qualifications. And the qualifications truly are what drive who will and won't apply for the position. I'll give you an example. Turn to page 37, actually. If you look on page 37, this is Danville City Public Schools. You'll see that it talks a little bit about the community. It talks about the school division. It talks about student enrollment, budget. And then right after that, it lists qualifications. Successful experience as a principal is required. So basically what's that saying is, for Danville, if you have never been a building level principal, then you are disqualified from this position. Because what you want to make sure you're doing is, if you're saying these are the qualifications, you want to make sure that's driving your decision going forward. Because you don't say the experience is required for something, and then you go hire someone that's just the opposite of that. You want this whole process to be, hey, this is what we're looking for, and these are the baseline minimum requirements that we're asking for. And if you see there next to the last bullet, for them, residency was an issue. So residency in the school division was required for them. Again, that is unique as the 132 school divisions here in the state of Virginia. So we wouldn't know that. You would know better from your community and from surveying and the public hearing what would be the best for that. And that's why it's always good to get that pulse from your community. But so right now, could you put an ad out? You could, but you wouldn't be able to know what any of your qualifications were at this point, because you haven't done that public hearing. You haven't surveyed the community, and you all, the board, haven't gotten together to establish those baseline qualifications. What questions do you all have at this point?
Well, there's been a suggestion that perhaps this is a bad time of the year to be looking for a superintendent. Can you speak from experience whether this is a good time to get lots of responses to our announcement, or is there a preferred time of the year to be doing this?
Well, 25 years ago, I would say probably not a great time. I would never say bad, because those seeking to be a superintendent and they see somewhere they think they're going to be a fit, they're going to take that chance no matter what. I would say if you were saying you want a September or an August start date, you'd probably have less applicants, because that starts the school year. And a lot of folks have already been contracted somewhere else for the beginning of the school year. But you're more likely with January, July, you may have to negotiate with whoever you hire. Maybe it's a July start date, not a January. But I wouldn't say it's a bad time, no.
So we have you're suggesting a window to take applications. So I suppose certainly we can look at how many we get at that point and decide whether to extend that, if it's a concern about the number of the response.
But I would say 25 years doing this, you worry less about your numbers and more about your quality. But there have been boards that have extended, doesn't happen often, but there are boards that have extended searches, and just because they haven't gotten applicants at all. And I will tell you, board behavior dictates the quality of applicants you get. It's just as there's not a truer statement out there. So the next thing you all want to do is, Madam Chair, is think about a date when the board, because you're going to want all the board there to listen to the community on what qualities they would like to see in the next superintendent. And it's just that you all are listening. You're not commenting, you're just listening, maybe making some notes, because you all are going to want to take that into consideration as you start to put together the position announcement.
Okay. Do you need us to come up with this timeline today and get it to you, or like do you need the timeline, or this is a suggestion for us to, so that we come up with a timeline that will meet our,
Yeah,
requirement?
it's more of a, yeah, because we don't know yours. We don't know your
Yeah.
schedules.
Yep.
So this was just something like
Mhm.
this was just a placeholder with an anticipated start date of January 1.
Okay.
It's pretty aggressive. And I will say this, if you look at where it says interview with candidates and we just have October/November, that sounds, yeah, oh yeah, but it's taken 5 schedules
Oh, yeah.
trying to merge those. And then let's say you are like most boards and you interview 8 to 10 people for this position. That's 8 interview slots. That's 16 hours because you're going to want to give 2 hours per interview.
Mhm.
So I would suggest that when you're looking at the timeline for the public hearing, for when the board can meet to get together to establish qualifications, that you also start thinking about dates and time for interviews. And I
interviews,
know that
okay.
sounds like, well, that's far off, but again, you still have regular stuff you're doing as board members. And on top of that, you have to do a superintendent search.
Mhm.
And like I said, if you're like most boards, 8 to 10 candidates that first round, 16 hours. Because we always say you give 2 hours for
Mhm.
that initial interview. You never probably need 2 hours, but you want that if nothing else, so you're not going from applicant to applicant to applicant, and sometimes you want to, as a board, be able to debrief and start talking about things you may have saw or thought, and then you all want to jot some notes down. But yeah, start thinking about those times. And October, November, I know is a busy time as well. There's a holiday that takes place in November as well. There are elections that take place in November, conferences that take place in November. So this is an aggressive timeline, but from my understanding, I assume that July 1 was the anticipated start date for this board, or had that
You
been
mean
discussed?
January.
What did I say?
You
Did I
said
say
July. That's
Yeah,
okay.
January 1.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were initially thinking that the 180 days, I mean, obviously that we didn't want to like sit on it for too long, right? And the 180 days, I think we probably initially counted from when we learned that Dr. Benson was retired, right? Not the end of August date.
Mhm.
But I mean, yes, I think that's, we talked about, yeah, but hopefully the end of the beginning of the year would be, best case scenario, I suppose.
All right. Well, stop us with any other questions. So what I would ask then is that you all take this timeline, you
Yep.
work with your dates, because what we're gonna want to do, and we want to do that sooner than later, is get something out to your community to let them know where you are with this process.
Mhm.
Send them the link to the survey so folks can start completing the survey. The survey should go to all parents. It should go to all employees. It should be on your website, so anyone that's a citizen that has access to complete that. And you all, the board, should also each complete one of the surveys.
That's one of the questions I had was, obviously, this is for people that only live in the division or are staff members. Is that correct? In other words,
Citizens, yes.
if people outside started to fill this out, that would not be counted. Okay, thank you.
And I would also say, and we will send, I don't know if you sent it to Cheryl already, but we will send Cheryl an electronic copy of the survey. I would also suggest that you have a hard copy at each one of your schools, maybe at central office, because there may be people that don't want to fill it out online, and that happens all the time. And what I would say, if that's the case, you allow them to complete the survey by hand. And then what you all would do would just scan, send it to us. We would have staff input that information. So there's no question about anything. We would be inputting all that information for you.
Okay.
I guess to follow up on that, so I mean, of course, we don't want people without a legitimate interest participating in the survey. So do you do anything to vet that, to make sure that the people who have interest in filling it out are doing it? I mean,
No, how would we be able to do that? That's impossible.
I'm asking, so you have no way.
We do have them identify themselves on the survey, whether they're a parent, community member, employee.
We can also tell if the IP address, if they filled it out from the same place more than once, but what their vested interest is, we would have no way of knowing that.
Okay, so you record the IP address, among other things.
No, we don't record it. We have it though.
Right. So, I mean,
All All right, so so those are sample position announcements. There are several of those. You're gonna want yours that's unique for you all. And like I said, we have most of their demographic information at this point. It's just a matter of, you may want to share this with them. It's just a matter of having dates to plug in for the public hearing, but the survey is truly ready to go at this point.
Thank you, Tom.
Now, if you turn to page 47, this talks a little bit about the applicant tracking process called AppleTrack that I mentioned briefly a few minutes ago. AppleTrack is what we're going to use to start once the application's open and you have that window there, that month there to receive applications. This is what the applicants are going to use to go online and start applying for the position. You all will each receive an email. It will be a special code, password only for you, unique to only you, that you will be able to use to go into AppleTrack and actually see every applicant that has applied. What we want you all to be able to see, what we see, we want you all to be able to see as well. There will be people that once it opens, they will immediately start to apply, but they may not have all of their information like letters of recommendation, transcripts, and they truly may start it on day one and may not hit the final send until 11:50 or 11:59 on that closing date, and that's fine, but at least the entire time you will be able to see as applicants start to come. And I can also tell you this from experience, you're going to receive the majority of your applicants that last week of the process. It's just how it is. There are some that'll hit send right away, but they hit send everywhere right away. But there are going to be others that have taken their time and they confidentiality. Let's stop there for 1 minute. This process needs to be confidential. It protects your candidates. You're going to be less likely to get strong, qualified candidates if they think that there's a breach in confidentiality. It is just what it is. The strong candidates have good positions where they're at, and they're not going to gamble on something that may or may not be. And if their name is out there and they're not selected, then they're jeopardized where they're at also in that process. So that confidentiality piece is really key. And that's one of the reasons why that information, that code, that information, we ask that you keep it just, whatever your code is, you keep it just for yourself. There may be times when you say, I'm locked out or I can't get in. Just call us, we'll do a reset and you'll be fine. So, go ahead.
Sometimes you'll receive your information and you're not quite ready to go in and generate your password and get into the system. If that's the case, or if the email gets lost and you get locked out of the system, please don't hesitate just to email. We can send you that link just about any time. So just email us if you have any difficulty getting in.
Okay.
And if you look on page 50, this is actually an actual snapshot of how the actual program looks. Basically, you're going to create a username and we have a password, and then you're going to create your own password. You're going to hit sign in, and that's basically it at that point. If you look at the bottom, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll generate the invitation and send it to your email, school board email address.
Starting on page 53, 52, 53, our sample interview questions.
Sorry, can I, just a quick question about this, the initial one, when we'll be able to set a password and everything. And we get something every day from VSBA, obviously. Is it going to be something special that we'll be able to see? Or will it look like these daily things?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. It just that, it's hard to read all that.
It
I
is.
want to
No,
make
it
sure
will-
that
it
this
will
is
be-
different.
It will be very different.
All right, thank you.
Because it'll be generated through AppleTrack. No, but great question though. Great. You do get a lot of information. That's, like I said, more than enough. So, but it'll look different. And again, if you have any trouble getting in, we're going to walk you through that process. But if you turn to page 53, starting on page 53 are sample interview questions. And don't worry about that now, but these are the kind of things you're going to want to start thinking about as we get closer. We will talk to you all when we come back for that second meeting about those. Same thing with some interview organizers starting on page 58. But if you look on page 59, one thing I do want to remind you, and we will remind you over and over again, is that the law protects you as far as when you do interviews, where you do them. You don't have to put out a public announcement to say we're going to be conducting interviews at ... at ... time. Don't have to do any of that. While the search process is going on, you are protected to basically, if you look at page 59, read this 15-day statement, and this is all you need to do for interviews. You read this statement. So let's say, for instance, your first interview would be October 1. You would say the board will meet and make an announcement of the public meeting. You would say that the King George County School Board will be conducting interviews for the position of superintendent search from October 1 to October 15th. If you're still interviewing after October 15th, you have to make another announcement. But that is all you have to do. So if you had a school board meeting, you could make the announcement at a school board meeting. You could call a special meeting, but this is truly all you have to do when you start to interview is make 15-day announcements. Because what you don't want to do, you don't want to share your location. You don't want to share your dates. You don't want to share your times. You just read a 15-day statement, and we'll remind you of that. And you can't do more than one 15-day statement at a time. So again, starting on page.
Sorry, you mean like you can't have overlapping ones or something? Like if you needed to extend it, you would just need to make another one saying that it's extended through.
So let's say you did October 1st through the 15th. If you know you're going to still be interviewing on October 15th or after October 15th, you would have to set up another date or another meeting to do another. So then you'd say October 16th through October 31st or something like. Yes, you'd have to.
Okay.
Okay. Again, starting on page 60 are sample interview guides. These are things we talked to you when we come back for that second interview in detail, but we wanted you to have those, as well as the sample superintendent contract that starts on page 70. I can't express enough how important it is for each one of you to take a look at this sample superintendent contract. Pay particular attention to anything that's bold or underlined in the sample superintendent contract. If you have questions when we come back for that next meeting, please be ready to talk, but we're going to be talking to you in detail as well. There are things that we want to make sure that you, the board, make sure you're protecting yourself with when it comes to the superintendent contract. And again, we will never second guess your wisdom, but as you stated earlier, we want to make sure we keep you legal also with this process. And I would suggest to you all, if each one of you haven't done this in the past, you all may want to take a look at your current contract, just so you have not for any changes at this point because it's too late, but at the end of the day, you want to see, okay, well, where are we at now with this compared to this? Because, that was 10 years ago. Our samples contract changes every year based on what the law says. There are things that change every year. So I would just suggest you take a good look at that. But we'll remind you of that when we come back for that second interview. Right now, what we want to make sure is that we can get, how soon do you think we would be able to get the press release out so we could get the link to the survey out to your community?
You mean to the press release just stating that there's a public hearing in the surveys? I don't know. I guess it depends on how aware of everyone's calendars we are up here today. So, I would be lying if I said I was confident we could get you that today.
Okay.
So I would say we can discuss after this, right, and come up with what our timeline and let you know.
Okay.
By, I don't know.
Next week.
Yeah, I would say, hopefully. Is that acceptable?
That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
And keep in mind, so you're going to want to think about a date for the public hearing. Keep that, you want to keep that time probably as close to, what time do you normally start your school board meetings? 5,
6 p.m.
You probably want to keep it in line with what you do for your public.
Yep.
I mean, whatever other public.
Other
meetings.
hearings we've had, yes, understood.
Do you think it would benefit you all to have more than one public hearing? Do you think one would do? Do you think you need one during the day? Do you think you need one?
I tend to think that one would suffice
Okay,
based on our other public hearings, so,
right.
Though I'm a little concerned that it's the summer. I'm not sure how aware people are, how likely they're to be tracking this. So I don't know if that'll affect participation perhaps.
Well, they will have an online option, which
Yeah.
they could do if they were traveling, for example.
That's true.
Right. I think they're more likely to see this and be aware of it on the website if it was during the school year than right now in the summer.
Well, I think we would need to do whatever type of public statement, whether it be the newspaper or the newspaper, whichever one we can find. But I think that we could reach everybody, put it at the library, for example.
Put it on your school, you're gonna put it on your school website.
Yep.
You all have the, what do you call it, the robocalls that you can use with parents. You put it there, have the same thing for your staff. You're gonna make all the best effort you can to
Yeah.
saturate that communication, so.
understood. I don't think we're probably too concerned about being able to get it out there. And I would argue, I mean, folks know that, it's been announced that our superintendent has retired. So I would say those that are interested in the process should be paying attention regardless of whether it's the school year or not.
Right. And then you're gonna also wanna, so you have the date for the hearing, then you all are you're gonna need a date immediately after that for the board to get together to decide based on what you get from us, because we'll be sending that to you, the results of the survey, and the survey will be pretty crystal clear in most cases. If it says something like, I'm just giving you this for example, 75% say that an earned doctorate is required, or 75% say residency in King George County is required. And that's what you're going to use to set that baseline minimum position announcement.
Right. I have a question about that. So the survey, I know this is tentative deadline, timeline here, but so deadline for surveys, if that was July 23rd, meaning that all the submissions would be in by the 23rd, and then saying we meet to establish the qualifications. On here, you have like a day turnaround. I guess what's the reasonable amount of time that you all need to compile the responses and provide them to us after the surveys are in?
Oh, no. If the deadline, the next day, we take our time, even if it's night, we stay there and do it.
Oh, okay.
So we get
Okay.
it to you.
It's instant. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And we want to give you all a chance. So you all need to take a look at that, and you want to disaggregate that data and look at it, or we disaggregate the data. You want to look at that disaggregated data because it's really interesting sometimes to see. So you'll get an overall, this is what everyone says,
Mhm.
but this is what parents say. And then this is what staff says, and this is what the community say. And sometimes they're not in line. And so that's some of the stuff you want to take a look at sometimes.
Yep. Understood. Okay.
We can close the survey like at 5 p.m. and have it to you by 7.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
You say again about what page that's on or the examples in the book? I missed that.
Of the survey?
Right.
I'm sorry. It's on the sample survey is on page 27.
Is there any allowance for any custom questions if we wanted to add them?
Right at the end, it says, it is one talent or skill that, yes, there are two right at the end of the survey. They're open and you do want to be careful with those because we don't want people calling people by name or saying derogatory stuff about folks by name. So we want to be careful about that. But once that survey is closed, it's public information. So you all would use that in any way you choose, but we would send it to you all and then you disseminate it because there may be folks that may ask you like, can we see, how many people filled it out? What was the percentage that said residency was required?
Mhm.
And so you'll have all of that information. Also keep in mind at the end of the day, though, the ultimate decision on what goes on that position announcement, it is up to the 5 of you. You want to hear from your community. You can't go wrong by listening to them and letting them tell you what qualities they want, but you all have to have input. That's what I'm telling you. You have one employee truly by the code of Virginia, and this is the most, I'm not saying this to scare you, this is the most important decision you all will ever make. So,
Understood. Go ahead. I'll save mine.
Just a quick question. If, oh, I totally lost it. Go ahead. All of a sudden, when you were going to
Okay.
talk, it's like,
So, so as far as like all these like different meetings, right, to review the survey results, to establish qualifications, all of those things need to be done in open session or
open.
open session,
All of-
all of it,
All process is open.
open session. Okay.
The next time you meet with us, though, it is a
Closed
closed
session.
meeting.
Got it. Okay.
I remembered my question. The disaggregated data that you're going to come up with, which is great. I know you got programs that help you do that, of course. That's why you can get it back so soon. But I'm assuming that will not be public knowledge, but it's okay for us to share the general data, nothing specific, but we can openly share the disaggregated data to say so many percentage said that this was important and so on. But you won't publish that then?
We don't publish it. No.
I'm not saying we would, but it's.
But if you chose to, you
That's
could.
my question.
Yes, you all could. Yes.
I'm curious, do many divisions publish some of that disaggregated data? I would assume not.
No, unless unless there was a request and
Okay,
someone asked for it. So
Thank you.
The qualifications should reflect the survey results.
Yeah, of course.
They see what was in the survey based upon
Right.
the qualifications you all said.
and that's why I'm sorry, Dave, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's why it's so important that if you say you want to hear from your community and you want them to be involved in the process, once those baseline requirements are established, that you don't advertise one thing and then the person you hire doesn't look anything or doesn't meet those baseline
Right.
qualifications. And that's sometimes when you'll say, well, wait a minute, if 99% of the people said residency was required, but now the board's saying, okay, well, it doesn't matter, residency doesn't matter, then that's sometimes where you'll have some issues.
They wouldn't know that information unless, assuming we didn't publish it, until they called one of us.
Exactly.
I think maybe we need to clarify my question from before. So you did say there's open-ended questions at the end of the survey, but so it sounds like maybe there isn't an opportunity for us to insert our own custom question in the survey. It's just set, it's take it or leave it as it is. Is that?
If you have questions you want to add, we're happy to do that.
That's easy. Okay. Okay, thanks. And the other thing was, so our second meeting with you, which you have scripted here for the end of September, is closed, but otherwise the meetings are all open. Can you just touch on what's different about that one, that it gets to be closed?
Because we're talking about people by name and it's protected by law. It's considered personnel.
Okay.
Matthew, it's also important that, if we do add any questions, it's the will of the board. and
Yeah.
not from
Oh, yeah.
just
Yeah,
individuals.
well, yeah, we wouldn't take them.
Yeah. The whole board
Mhm.
makes that decision.
Understood.
But so not having a meeting anytime between now and September is if we have questions, we're just kind of contacting you individually by phone and emails, how you want to do that, right?
Whatever works best for you. Email. I'm pretty quick with email. But if you want to call, that's fine. I'm usually on the road 75% of the time, but yeah, either way, whatever works, whatever is easier for you. And you will have questions, and that's what we're here for. So. All right, that's it at this point.
Oh, that's it. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Okay. What? Oh, well,
Is the timeline too aggressive for you, David?
No, what I'm saying, no, it's not aggressive. This is all good, and I appreciate it very much. I'm just looking, it's for 5 people in summertime. We didn't know about the retirement until he told us, obviously. And so just to make our schedules fit which does beg another question. If only 4 of us can meet or 3 of us, and let's say they can't for whatever reason, get online to meet with us. If we don't have to make any board decision, does it still have to be a majority, obviously, to meet? I'm assuming at least 3 of us would have to meet, right?
Yeah. And I know you're not going to want to hear this, but
I know.
I would stress that you
I know.
have all 5 of you, because all 5 of you represent your districts, and you want all voices in this process. And it is definitely, when it comes to time for interviewing, it is a no. Everybody has to be there. Because you don't want someone else trying to explain to you what they think they heard someone else say. It's key. And that's the piece that it is. I was saying to Tom coming, it's an aggressive timeline, excuse me, based on the fact that there's so many moving parts going on right now. Can it be done? Of course. But again, you just said 5 schedules you have to try to get
That's correct,
together.
yeah.
You got the opening of school coming. I don't know if you all have elections, but I know there are elections going on in November. Holiday in between that in November. We have our annual conference in November. There's a lot going on. And if this board, it's the will of the board, if you all say we want to take a pause and say, so let me say this to you. You have to announce your new superintendent within 180 days. That's announce them. They still might not start till July 1. The law just says you have to announce them within that 180 days. So if that would help give you all some wiggle room, because I'm going to tell you, if you push it to December to do interviews, I would say push it to January. December, I hate to say this, but it's a dead month for most.
Of course.
Anything dealing with the school divisions. But I would also say to you, if you all feel like you need to step back, take your time to process this, push that schedule back, don't hesitate to do that, because you want to do it right the first time, and you don't want to do this in 2 years. You want to wait 10 years from now.
Well, I don't want to be misunderstood. I obviously or absolutely concur that all 5 of us need to be at these meetings. I wasn't trying to say
Oh,
we
I know
wouldn't be.
that, yeah.
But it's just that this is going to be a long discussion because, like you said, there are 5 schedules and also the whole school opening and all these things that go on in preparation for that opening. So that's the only reason I was even talking about that. I made the assumption that there had to be at least 3 of us, but obviously we're going to try to make sure all 5 of us are at every meeting.
Yeah, and it is. It is going to be unlike anything you all have done as board members, and it's going to be time consuming. I don't even know how to say it any other way. It's going to
yeah.
take time.
I mean, as it should, right? It's a big decision. So the public hearing does that have a 7 or a 10-day pre-posting requirement?
What is your current policy on public hearings? You have one, and you have a policy.
We do. So we typically do 10 days.
10 days.
I didn't know if that was for all of them or, yeah, okay. So yes,
Is
I'm
it for
still
all-
sticking
is
with,
it for all public hearings?
yeah.
Then
Okay,
Then you need to follow whatever that
Yep.
policy is.
Okay. And then the surveys, how long do you typically recommend they remain open, or
We usually say 2 weeks for surveys,
2 weeks?
because if you
Okay.
leave them out there any longer, then people think they have forever to do it.
Oh, yeah.
But we like to say 2 weeks. And I would also say, if you're able to use, is it called robocall or whatever, the little, what I'm talking about, the system.
Yeah, we have a.
If you're
phone
able to
messenger.
use that, you send that first announcement, you say, hey, here's the link, here's where you go to get it to fill out the survey. And I would say a day or 2 prior to that closing, you send another one. Hey, this is just a reminder that the survey will close on whatever date. Don't forget to, complete that.
Okay. And the survey wouldn't necessarily have to align in any particular fashion with the public hearing, but.
No, it doesn't have
Yeah,
to.
okay.
One of the nice things, though, if they do align, like if the closing date for the survey is the same date as the public hearing, if you have folks there that are talking, you can also say, well, have you also completed a survey online? If not, you can go online. I've seen boards even have laptops at their meetings to say, you can go over there and fill it out, or when you get home, don't forget to fill out the survey. It doesn't close till 11:59 p.m. or whatever. But no, it does not necessarily have to align.
Okay.
The only thing that has to happen in sequence is the fact that you have to have a public hearing and the survey results have to be tallied before we can push out the position announcement.
Understood. Okay.
The qualification.
Say what again?
Meetings set on the qualification.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
That's why that qualification meeting has to occur after the surveys and public hearing. Obviously.
And I will, and you know your community better than we do. Some boards will say, okay, well, if the public hearing, let's say the public hearing is at, what did you say, 6 o'clock? Did you say 6?
Mhm.
6 o'clock. Then maybe it'd be over at 7:30. I don't know the answer to that, but some boards will stay around and just do their qualifications right after the public hearing, but that's up to you all.
Okay,
I'm just trying to say that if you want to save a date or
right. And try to
One-
knock, try to
Yep.
knock it all out. Okay.
just makes for a longer evening, so.
Understood. Okay. So I guess, as far as dates are concerned for the board, not that we have to decide upon them today, but just for, I guess, like a consideration, right? So our next meeting is on the 25th. So that's already scheduled. I would assume if we would probably want to, so it's 25th, but regardless, independent of that date, I assume we would like to meet and come up with what we want to finalize what is in the survey before the survey is released. If we were ambitious and tried to do our public hearing on the 25th, which would be a 10-day notice going out tomorrow, the 15th, correct? Yep. Okay, so what's the soonest we could post that? Like the middle of next week? Tuesday, the 19th, so 19th or 20th? Okay. So it sounds to me like we would need to pick a day to finalize the survey so that we could issue that and then also post and advertise the public hearing. Does everyone agree?
So because of the 10-day
Process.
requirement, there's no way we could follow this.
Oh, yeah. I didn't really.
I knew that. I just wanted to make sure we understood that. So, and we couldn't even do it, which would be nice, on the 25th when we have our regular meeting. We can't
Is
because.
that what your 10 days, you wouldn't have your 10 days?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cheryl was just saying that it takes 3 days to get it to the newspaper. So that would basically be 13 days.
So I would ask, would everyone be amenable to setting a date next week to meet and establish the content, the questions for our survey such that that could be issued and a notice could go out for a public hearing as soon as possible? Like, so if we met on Monday or something to come up with our survey so that we could get that to VSBA for
So
issue.
You mean change the questions on the survey or?
I guess just become familiar with what it,
Okay.
Are you
well, I guess typically, where was the survey?
probably referring to what Matt was talking about? You may want to add a question or so. Is that what you're talking about,
We
Gary?
may or may not. I mean, I honestly haven't looked at it yet, really.
So does the survey, do you typically issue the survey just as is, like other
Normally,
divisions?
But normally,
Okay.
but you don't have to.
Okay.
I would recommend that.
You what?
I would recommend that. I'm just
Recommend which?
timing that we just do the survey that's there. I glanced at it. It looks very good.
Oh.
Obviously, there's been a lot of work done on it. But I agree with Matt. It'd be nice to take some time. I'm just worried about fitting in the dates for all 5 of us for the public hearing. That's all.
Well, so public hearing, so if we were to assume that something could be issued, that a notice could be issued the 19th or the 20th, 10 days would put us at August 2nd or 3rd
For the public hearing.
for the public hearing. Could everyone commit to one of those today?
Hold on.
Is this,
August 2nd, yes. The 3rd, no.
I'm sorry. Early August for what again?
for the public hearing?
Tuesday.
No, I will be out of town from the 3rd to the 9th of August.
The 3rd to the 9th.
Right.
So you could do the 2nd.
Tuesday, the 2nd.
As long as
Tuesday
it's
the 2nd.
after work hours, yeah.
Well, it would be, yeah, we talked about doing a public hearing such as we normally do. So say if it was Tuesday at 6.
Tuesday,
I
the
don't know of
2nd.
any reason why I couldn't at this point now.
So the only other consideration, the Board of Supervisors has a meeting that same evening, I believe. I haven't checked our calendar. I know we often try to avoid their scheduling at the same time, but we don't have to, right?
We could have it at the high school, maybe.
It's the same room as the Board of Supervisors? Or do you
This
have-
room often, but we've held them elsewhere as well. So,
The high school has been
That's what I was
a
gonna
pretty
say.
successful meeting place because of, has plenty of parking and plenty of seating and.
I would say, Gary, Madam Chairman, that having us agree on a date is more important than the place because we have places.
agreed, assuming, yes,
I
that,
do. I see that there is a Board of Supervisors meeting that
yep,
evening.
I would assume so.
Yeah, I'm sure I can figure out how to arrange the high school.
Okay.
Madam
Um,
Chair, I'd like to raise a larger issue. I wonder how adamant we are with this anticipated start date being January versus maybe giving ourselves a little bit more space to be deliberate about this and get it right. And maybe we anticipate the start date being the beginning of a contract period like July 1st, 2023. Does that alarm anybody, or what are the thoughts on that, just to have a little bit more time?
So I personally think we can be deliberate and do it the right way and do it in a timely fashion.
I think I agree with the chair that I think having it in January is much better for the division.
Mhm.
Because when you have almost a whole year, it's just a long time. So I would like to see it in January also.
But again, as she said, we can hire as of January 1st, but not have a beginning date until June or July or whatever works with the candidate.
Right. The schedule is to hire announced in November, December. So yeah, with starting is January, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's
Right. And that's why I was clear to put, I didn't say start, I said anticipated start dates. to
Understood.
give you a little wiggle room there.
Yeah.
So,
So going back to August 2nd, is that what you're suggesting, Madam
So
Chair?
I'm suggesting, although Dr. Cartwright, did you have an opinion?
Yes, I'm available August the 2nd, but not the 3rd, and I concur with Ms. Hawk, Mr. Bush, and that we should anticipate announcing someone January the 1st, but they may not begin until July 1st. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so.
I think she's just saying at a future date. They don't necessarily have to start in January. We can talk about that later. But that they'll be announced in January, that they don't have to start then.
Yes.
If at all possible. Mhm. Okay, so that sounds like we have consensus on doing the public hearing on August 2nd. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and so we'll finalize the location for that. So we'll do 6 PM on August 2nd. Okay. All right, so then to back that up, okay, so if we want to talk about the survey, so it sounds like a few folks are fine with issuing it as it is. I could take a few minutes. I don't know that I would have any objections to issuing it as it is, as I wanted to allow for conversation if there were other opinions on the matter. So,
I will say that as far as my concern earlier about people being notified, having time to do the survey or come to public hearing, the fact that we can not only do the website, but do the robocalls, I think would be a good way to get the word out, where I wouldn't be quite as concerned about that. So.
okay.
So, Madam Chair,
Mhm.
the most important aspects of the superintendent candidate is leader and manager, which is listed on the survey, and instructional leadership, as well as community relations, school finance, and areas of expertise. So I think the survey is very good. Thank you.
I agree with Dr. Cartwright, just
Okay.
concurrence that I've seen these before quite often, actually. And I'm sure in those of us that have been with schools, and this looks very well done. It's obviously been a lot of research to this. So I would agree that it's fine like it is.
Okay. Ms. Hawk, do you have an opinion?
No, I typically think that the VSBA has far more numbers and statistics and past information than we would. I think we can depend on them.
I would tend to agree. So that, I believe, leaves you, Mr. Rolls.
I tend to like to sleep on things. I don't think we need to decide today, do we? I mean, we have a little bit of time. We could email concerns if we have them. And
So my only concern is that we don't have another scheduled meeting before the 25th, which does not leave much time to have the survey issued prior to the public hearing on the 2nd. So I think if we can make a decision at this point in time, which it sounds like we can, we should move ahead with the survey.
yeah, I guess the decision could also be whether to have another meeting. So the timeline had the survey being done at the time of the public hearing, but it doesn't necessarily need to be done by then. You're just saying it's desirable just to keep things moving along.
So Dr. Cartwright, did you offer an opinion on the survey? Sorry if you
Yes, I
did.
did. And my opinion is that the two most important aspects of a superintendent candidate is leader and manager and instructional leadership, as well as school finance and areas of expertise. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I do recall that point. So I guess at that point, Mr. Rolls, you would be the lone individual who wants more time to sleep on the survey. The rest of the consensus of the board is that we would be fine issuing the survey as it is. Are you amenable to that?
Well, I mean, I guess what I said is what I'm thinking. So yeah, we obviously could just leave it for now and email to add a meeting if we think we need to, but with the default being that we don't need another meeting and that we think we're just going to use this. But, we could still.
That seems,
I guess I don't understand the concern about the survey. Do you want to add customized questions?
I don't know right now for sure, is what I'm saying. I mean, potentially that's the thought, is that there might be some benefit to adding some King George specific question.
I think what you're saying, Mr. Rolls, is we just saw this now today. You haven't had enough time to digest it, and I understand that. Especially because this is probably kind of a new thing. And so I'm wondering, we can agree tentatively that it will be due at the same time. Is it possible if we make that decision that it'll be due the same time or as the public hearing that we've already decided for August 2nd, that if there is a concern that Mr. Rolls had, that we could, I don't know if you can do this by email?
no, so we can't have a public meeting via email. And my concern with having.
I was talking about just the
We can
survey,
say-
adding a question to the survey that Mr. Rolls may want.
Well,
That's my question.
I would also caution you, if you're going to do the public hearing on August 2nd,
Right.
you want 2 weeks for the survey to be out there.
That's
That
right.
means on the 19th, that survey needs to be open. And the 19th, I think, is it next? week?
It's next Tuesday.
Next
So that was, yeah, so my concern with having it be a tentative agreement today is that should someone have an objection next Monday and want to add a question, then we need to convene to finalize it. And we've got to post a meeting for 3 days, try to post it. I feel like the timeline is not terribly conducive to that if the majority of the board is fine with the survey as it is. Would we like to take a vote on the matter?
Probably.
Anyone?
I guess it's kind of my point, like, well, whether we really just need to have this timeline driving things, we're in a big rush to do things.
So it seems like the majority of the board is content with moving on. So I'll put a motion on the table to approve of releasing the survey as is presented here before us. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any debate?
Nothing that we haven't already said.
Okay.
Let me ask, can I ask them a question? Listening to all of this, I'm trying to be respectful to Mr. Rolls' opinion. Do you have any input with this before we take a vote on this?
No.
And positives, negatives, has any other division ever kind of asked that kind of question? Can we add to it? And what was the,
They haven't, because we've done extensive research on this, and the questions are pretty open, so that if you have something that you want to share, or an individual has something they want to share, there's plenty of areas that can be
Opportunities, yeah.
done. But again, I'm never going to second guess the wisdom of a board member. So.
oh, no, I know. No, yeah, I understand that. I was just saying if you've ever had this experience. So I hear what you're saying is that maybe if someone does have something else they want to add, they can put it on the survey.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And there also, don't forget now, though, you still have an opportunity through a public hearing to still share
Correct.
additional information.
That's a
Understood.
good
Understood.
point.
All right. Well, without further ado, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
I said aye. It's fine.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I didn't hear you. Mr. Rolls. I apologize. Chair votes aye, so motion carries. All right. So with that, Gina and Tom, do you need anything from us? So this will go out and we'll get it out by our means.
19th.
Yeah, we'll,
Okay.
and we'll get the surveys ready to go,
Yep,
actually,
okay.
right now.
Okay.
And I would just ask you, I know you all don't want to hear this, but so if the public hearing is the
Mhm.
second,
Mhm.
the survey we'll close the survey and get it to you the information the morning prior to that at the latest.
Okay.
When can you all meet to establish those qualifications?
So then that would be after the public hearing. So it sounded like, yeah, so after the second,
Or on the second?
we're on the second, right after the public hearing. I could do after we could knock it all out on the 2nd.
Dr. Boyd, may I ask, that 3rd, 4th, and 5th, do we have any functions welcoming new staff? That's typically the time frame that we would have.
That is our in-service week.
Yes.
And I
So-
think one of your board members said he wouldn't be around on the 3rd.
The 3rd through the 9th, right?
Right. That's right. You're gone the 3rd through the 9th.
Yeah, I won't be here either.
And
You-
you will,
you-
Doctor.
You won't.
Right.
Correct.
So what,
Uh,
could we, I tell you what, could we, could everyone, if there are like major dates in the month of August that you're not available, can we run through them real quick? So Matt, sorry, Mr. Rolls, so you said the 3rd through the 9th of August you're out?
Right.
Okay, are there other dates?
I actually don't even have that in my calendar right now. That was just from memory, so.
Okay, but like a major out of town, okay. Dr. Cutright, are you aware of any?
August the 3rd.
Just the 3rd. Okay. Mr. Bush, did you say you're out similar time frame?
Yeah, it would be difficult depends on the day. I'm here in town until the end of August. But I have some various commitments on certain days, so it would just depend on the day.
Okay. Ms. Hawk,
I did my grandchild visit last week, so
you're
I'm free
good.
for
You're
August.
good. Okay. I think I'm largely available in August with a couple days, probably here and there as well. So if we, I guess, if we weren't able to meet to establish our qualifications until, let's see, so our meeting calendar, we have a meeting on the 8th and a meeting on the 22nd. So I guess Mr. Rolls, you'll miss the meeting on the 8th. Is that accurate? Okay. So if we schedule a meeting later that week, or even say the earliest of like August 15th, what would that do to our timeline?
Let's use August 15th. Then we would have to just push, well, you're fine. We'll be good. We'll make it work.
That would still work. I guess board members, so I mean, it's just maybe a matter of days, but if we pushed to the end of the week before that, like Wednesday, the 10th or something, would that work for folks?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, what was the reason why we couldn't do it? I know it'd make a long board meeting, but in my opinion, I'd rather have a longer board meeting than have a separate date.
Oh, that's true. I'm fine with that as well.
August the 8th, is there, and I realize, again, it'd be a long meeting, but couldn't we do the qualifications on August 8th?
So we could do the qualifications, though Mr. Rolls will not be present. Correct?
We're talking about for the 2nd. I mean, that would be the only matter before the board. That's all we would be doing that day, so.
Yeah,
Would
you
necessarily be that
Second,
long.
we can do the 2nd if that,
Second too, yes.
okay.
We can talk about
I'm totally fine with that. Does that?
Yeah.
Dr. Boyd, are there any, do you think any issues
To
with
do it
that?
all on the 2nd?
I can make that
School or
work at the
something?
high school. Mhm.
Okay,
This can be a long meeting.
all right, that's fine. Okay, we'll do that. Dr. Cartwright, that work for you?
Yes, that works for me. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. All right.
And then you would leave everything else the same. We'd still be good with the rest of it. Then they would just have to
Okay.
provide qualifications afterwards.
All right, and then so after we do that and then we meet and we establish our qualifications, we provide that to you via email, how does,
Yes.
through Cheryl, okay, got it. All right. With us receiving them or closing, what was that again?
Closing it on August 1st, and then we send them to you, so you all have them prior to. your meeting.
Yes, yes, that'd be fine. Mhm.
Send them a cleaned up timeline also. And then what about this? Can you all take a look at your calendars for the September 29th date? It says 2020.
The second meeting, right, okay. I assume that would be, okay, like noon, like something similar akin to this?
Yep.
Are you again amenable to traveling to us or do we need?
No, we come to you.
Okay, okay. I don't see why that wouldn't work for me. During the day.
Not for me as well.
Okay,
What's the date? I'm
the
sorry.
29th, Thursday, the 29th at noon,
Of August?
September.
September, I'm sorry. I was putting down the dates because I don't want to lose. September the 29th, hold on.
Yeah, it's a Thursday. Mhm. I mean, if that doesn't work, we could do the 28th.
Yeah, I'm not available at night. On the
When?
20 I'm not available on the 29th at night. At night, I have.
So can you do
Noon.
noon?
Yeah.
Could you do like today?
Noon, yes, I can do noon. Sorry. Yes.
Okay, does that work? So, all right, so we'll settle on that as well. The 29th of September. Okay. All right.
That's good. That's great.
Okay. What else? Anything else you need from us right now?
Not at this point. We've got
No?
those dates. That's great. And we will send you a cleaned up timeline also.
Okay, great, great. All right.
So, and
That
and
what?
Madam Chair, I guess along those lines, since we've decided on August 2nd now, can I suggest that we, as far as communications, of course, like on the website as soon as possible, but then do also do a robocall as soon as possible, to let people know, and we'll do a reminder 3 days prior. Something
And we
right?
will get you,
Certainly.
that's perfect. And we'll
Mhm.
get you a cleaned up version of this so you can have the link. Well, you have the link now, but I would get it on your website. I agree, as soon as possible.
Certainly, certainly. Okay,
And you have the press release also. Did they give them a copy of the press release? Okay.
yes, do we have a,
We need to clean that up because it'll change because they need to add the date for the public hearing. And then once they decide on the location, you would want to send that out. Because they don't have a location, I don't think, at this point.
okay, right, the survey and then page.
That is the correct link in that sample press release. That link is ready to go, though.
Okay, okay. All right,
All right, thank you.
I do have a follow-up question. So I asked earlier about how well you can see where these surveys are coming from. Obviously, it's not an election. We're not electing the superintendent, so it's not quite as big of a concern for a survey. But you mentioned that you have the IP address, but you don't
We
record.
don't normally pull them up when they're not asked, but if you want to see the IP address, I'm sure we could pull them up. And
Well, I wonder what you do in general. So you ask for the name and address, and what kind of information do you collect from?
No, I mean, it's an anonymous survey, so you don't ask name and addresses for an anonymous survey.
Well, I know, I figure you would anonymize it, but you don't ask for it at all.
No.
But so you mentioned IP addresses, so that's something you look at just to see if anything looks off, or why do you mention that?
We don't. I mean, we would take people I think you have to take people at
Trust.
at trust. I mean, if someone is really that concerned about your next superintendent that they're filling out 100 surveys, then you have other issues going on. You're going to also have a community forum where you're going to get a feel for what people want in the next superintendent. And at the end of the day, it is ultimately up to the 5 of you what goes in that position announcement.
True. I just trying to get all the information, but see, you just mentioned the IP address as a possibility. It's not something you
Yeah,
do.
we don't have a practice of going back and looking at IP. We could, we just don't. We've never had an issue with it. So
Frankly, as far as I'm concerned, as you were saying, if a person has that much investment in our process, I really want to hear from them. Whether they live here or not. It may be that they're moving here, or they're trying to choose a location to live. I mean, I don't think it matters.
We monitor that survey throughout the process. I mean, almost checking it once or twice a day first of all, look at the numbers to see what you are generating in terms of responses, but we would also look for any anomalies.
Frankly, I'm sorry. Frankly, I'm concerned that we won't have enough people complete it. That's typically our issue with surveys in King George County. So we need to sort of go the other direction and really get information out and really convince people to do the survey. I think that's where our effort needs to be.
I agree. And I think if you all know organizations or groups you want to make sure their voices are heard, then you forward them a copy of that survey. That's yes.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question for
Certainly.
clarification? The survey is issued from VSBA. You guys are sending it out. When would be the ideal time for us to use the phone messenger and let everybody know that the survey is coming out?
You could do it as early as this afternoon, as soon as we can get back to our office, clean up the timeline and get it back to you all.
Okay.
We actually create the press release. You all put it out.
but he's talking about the link to the survey. In all actuality, the link to the survey is, the link you see there is ready to go now.
Okay. So we can do that now or shortly after now. Okay.
Yeah, shortly.
And so it will just be, so we're talking about it closing, I'm not looking at my calendar,
August
on
1st.
August 1st, but it would just, it's basically open as soon as it is announced and people can.
As soon as you all share
anyone-
that link, it's
open till the
Mhm.
1st. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Yep, I got that. I was making sure there wasn't like an opening date.
No,
or
I know
something.
what you're
Got it.
saying.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Dr. Boyd, you probably do that tomorrow morning, maybe?
Yeah, we can do that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And is it,
I would say
Ew.
at the time, yeah, whenever.
is it allowed that we can go ahead and get that survey printed in hard copies to distribute?
Yeah, Cheryl, I don't know if we've sent it to you already. I don't think we did, but we'll get it to her this afternoon.
Okay.
So you'll have, yeah.
Great.
And I truly would suggest, I mean, we've done several searches this year and there is always at least one or two folks that want to complete HART. And what you don't want is for anyone to give you a reason to say they weren't able to participate because let's say they don't have a computer or that they didn't have transportation to come. You're saying to me, fill it out, whatever the closest school is, the school board office, get it to us and we will make sure your voice is heard.
Frankly, the best location for that would be a desk at Walmart. And I'm sort of serious about that, I guess, is that's a public position that, take it from me, the whole world is going there and they already have school supplies out and ready to purchase. So, I mean, we might think about being creative for 1 or 2 dates.
Yep,
That'd be interesting.
okay.
You know, if you do something, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, go
But
ahead.
if you do something like you have organizations to do stuff the bus or some of those type of activity, you could have a table sitting right there and asking people to complete the survey. So
Certainly, certainly.
back to school
And
night. if
the
it was
why, for
before.
example.
Mhm, for sure. Okay.
All right.
Surveys that way.
And so I would just ask, so Ms. Uzerski, Ms. Higgins, those of you who actually are gonna like help make this happen, any concerns or things you need, or you got it? Okay, thank you all.
What a great staff.
I know. Okay,
All
all
right.
right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for making the drive. All right, so I believe we have a few items to tackle in closed session. So at this time, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
Make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to State Code 2.2-3711.A.1 for the purpose of discussion, consideration of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, substitute stipends, and resignation of employees of the school board.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're now in closed session.